Let's see who we are. So we about half the class are either agnostic or atheist, and about almost 40% are Christian. We have a mysterious 20%, and 3% Jewish. All right, let's go down another one. Whoa, that's very interesting. Very interesting. All right, this class is going to be fun. Let's go down again, Jordan. Wonderful. We have people from 180. I'm really pleased about that. This is a diversity of views that I'm very happy with. We want to have a dialogue here. So that means people with different views. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so traditional gender roles are alive and well. I think that is pretty clear. Let's go to the next one. Aha. So in some regards, gender roles are being challenged in this class. Okay. This is a question only for guys. In my generation, it was usually number 2, but things keep changing maybe. Oh yes, here we go for girls. We have a pretty strong preference for talking it out immediately on both sides. All right, and the last one? Oh, wow, very interesting. All right, we are prepared now to begin a real dialogue with real differences of opinion. Okay, we'll switch over now to our topic today, which is the creation of patriarchy. Okay, let's begin with the definition. Keep it simple, patriarchy. Patriarchal gender relations are embodied in social norms and roles, in laws, and in metaphors that establish the authority of men over women and the head of the household over all who live in it. It doesn't have to be a legal framework. It can be just a social framework. And it's not just the authority of men over women. The household becomes the model for society where the man is the head of the household. Okay, I want to distinguish patriarchy, just so we can think clearly about these questions, from patrilineal and matrilineal. Patrilineal is a social system in which one belongs to one's father's lineage. It generally involves the inheritance of property, names, or titles through the male line. Matrilineality is a system in which a person belongs to his or her mother's lineage. There are matrilineal peoples in the world. In India, there are matrilineal groups. Examples of matrilineal societies that still exist today, well, there were the ancient Egyptians were matrilineal, but the Minangkabau today in South India, as somebody pointed out, the Nairs, the Pillai caste, and several other groups. I didn't list them all. The Hopi Indians in the American Southwest, the Iroquois of the American Indians, and some other groups, and a group in China, and in North Africa, the Tuaregs. And just to point out that although the Jews, the Israelites, were patriarchal, there's remnants of matrilineal there too, because at least there's a folk tradition that maintains that in order to be Jewish, you have to be born of a Jewish mother. And that's derived from a passage in Deuteronomy, which was trying to prevent Israelites from marrying out and losing their distinctive identity as the people of Yahweh. Why would you think that matrilineal precedes patrilineal? You're always certain who the mother of the child is. So she knows that you know that the bloodline is going on. But so what would the shift to patrilineal involve? Control over the women's sexuality. So it requires, essentially, patriarchy to get from matrilineal to patrilineal. And as you can sort of tell from this presentation, throughout the world, matrilineal societies have given way to patrilineal societies, where patriarchy guaranteed the man that he could control the woman and make sure that when she bore a child, it was his child. Then the question is, have there ever been matriarchies? Were the early matrilineal societies matriarchal, where women ruled over men? I am of the school that argues that there are matrilocal societies where men live where their wife is from, and there are matrilineal societies where inheritance passes through the female line, at least the inheritance of land, traditional. But my observation would say that, for instance, the Minangkabau are certainly not matriarchal, that men because they Marantau, they choose, women may negotiate the marriage, but they often marry out. They don't necessarily marry into Minangkabau culture. They leave, they're free to make whatever decisions they want. They choose where to live, whether they'll live with the woman or not. The women collectively do not make rules that control men's behavior, the way in which in a patriarchy there are rules and actually codified laws that control women's behavior. And Matthew said he heard about a matriarchy in Thailand, so you get to talk about that.
It was a small hill tribe that I saw in northern Thailand, and I only spent the afternoon there, and so I obviously don't know much about them. They're called the Aka, A-K-H-A. I was under the impression, and it was explained to me, again, it could have been very glibly and due to language barriers, that the women were in charge of making decisions. It was one of these instances where a guide I was with said, here, with the Aka, the women make the decisions. And so I turned to the women who seemed to be one of the elders and said in my broken Thai, really, you make the decisions? And as a joking kind of gesture, and with a very firm response, she said, oh yes, we make the decisions here.
They may make decisions about their own activities, right. But whether they control the activities of men is where I would question it. And that's what matriarchy would be. It would be the next step.
In the book I read, Peggy Sande directly sort of contradicts Gerda Lerner in Gerda Lerner's assertion that a matriarchy would be the direct, near parallel to patriarchy. She instead makes the argument that we shouldn't assume that a matriarchy would mean women having control over men's actions, but perhaps rather that there would be an equality between the sexes and women would have their own full autonomy over their own actions. Or at least that there would be a partnership there that equally combined both of the sexes.
In the 400 years between Abraham and Moses going down into Egypt and coming back out, we know that the Hebrew tribes worshiped Yahweh, but we also have stories from the Bible that show that they had household female deities. So there were female deities during that period. The monotheism really comes only with Moses. And that events of Exodus and are dated to about 1,300 before the current era. And of course, after Moses, all idol worship is prohibited, and the cults of the various fertility goddesses are attacked and destroyed. That's the end of these fertility goddesses within that tradition. Some people argue that what Moses got this idea that not only did you have a superior male god, but that only that god existed from an Egyptian pharaoh named Akhenaten, who lived about 1,350. For some reason, he tried to reform Egyptian religion and make everybody monotheistic and worship only one god, a sun god. He failed. So, questions. What do you think? Does the development of computers count as another major technological revolution? And if so, is it having an impact?
It comes down to, are we even going to be able to exist as people anymore because we've built things to do everything for us?
I went to Google and I typed it in, and 0.2 seconds later I found it. I don't think we're any stupider for it. I just think our information comes so much faster and so much easier. We might be getting lazier about it.
With certain aspects of technology, it is kind of drawing us closer together as opposed to like spreading us apart. I can't count the number of people that I became friends with before I actually came to campus that I met on Facebook.
I don't know, I kind of almost think that computers have almost actually brought men and women together. I mean, not just because of the interpersonal relationship, but because anyone can learn to do it. Whoever has money or can get access to a library can get on there and use it.
So I think really we do have like a dependency on each other, and I don't think technology is making us less connected. We still like want somebody to go with us and do something. Oh, I need to go see a counselor today, or oh, someone's coming to visit. Will you come with me? Will you go eat lunch with me?
Last night I went out with some girl, and she was texting me all the time. I'm just like, I'll talk to you later on the internet.
And what is the future of patriarchy? In the late 20th century, women became leaders of major countries. Are these women merely stand-ins for powerful groups of men, as in the ancient patriarchal states of Mesopotamia, which we learned about in the reading? Or do they constitute a revolution in gender ideology?
Yeah, women are allowed to work now, but we're also allowed to work now. We're expected to still clean and still raise the children and still do that. So and get paid less. Women still get paid less.
A man who works in exactly the same position as a woman does gets, on an average, a higher salary than a woman.
Yeah, we've come a little bit farther, but really, what is that in the past thousands of years?
The comparison to the progress we've made in the past 100 years is huge compared to the null progress that was made in the past thousands of years.
The fact that women are allowed to vote, the fact that women are allowed to have, say the fact that a woman can run for president, because 100 years ago that wasn't possible. I mean, granted, we still are a patriarchal society. I mean, I'm not denying that at least. I'm just saying there have been,
Huge leaps.
Yeah.